The night Alpha Tristan banished his mate from the Silver Moon Pack. Everyone believed she would die in the wilderness. But 5 years later the gates of the pack opened again. And the woman he once rejected returned beside the Lycan King. As the Lycan Queen, the gates of the Silver Moon Pack had not opened like this in years. Heavy iron doors creaked slowly as they parted, revealing a long road leading into the heart of the territory. Dozens of wolves gathered near the entrance, whispering nervously among themselves. Something was coming. They could feel it. A strange tension filled the air, thick and electric, making even the strongest wolves uneasy. Standing at the center of the courtyard was Alpha Tristan Blackwood, leader of the Silver Moon Pack. Tall, powerful and respected. For years he had ruled his pack with absolute authority. No one questioned his decisions. No one challenged his strength. Yet tonight something about the air made his wolf restless. Tristan frowned as he looked toward the open gates. "Why are the guards so nervous?" he asked one of his betas. The beta swallowed hard. "Alpha, the scouts reported a convoy approaching our territory." "A convoy?" Tristan repeated, irritated. "Since when do strangers enter my lands without permission?" The beta hesitated. "That's the problem." Tristan's sharp eyes narrowed. "What problem?" The beta lowered his voice. "They say the scent is royal." The courtyard fell silent. Royal. Only one type of wolf carried that scent. Lycan. The most ancient and powerful bloodline among werewolves. But that was impossible. Lycans rarely left their territory in the northern mountains. And they certainly didn't visit ordinary packs. Tristan scoffed. "You expect me to believe the Lycan kingdom is coming here?" Before the beta could answer, a deep rumble echoed across the valley. Every wolf turned toward the road. Moments later the first vehicle appeared. It was unlike anything the pack had ever seen. A long black armored car rolled slowly through the gates. Behind it followed several identical vehicles. The engines purred like sleeping beasts as the convoy entered the pack courtyard. Whispers spread through the crowd. "What is this? Who are they? Why are they here?" The vehicles stopped in a perfect line. Then the doors opened. The first person to step out was a man. And the moment his feet touched the ground, the entire courtyard froze. Power radiated from him like an invisible storm. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark coat that moved like shadow around his body. His presence alone forced several wolves to lower their heads instinctively. Because everyone could feel it. This man was not an ordinary alpha. He was something far greater. The man slowly lifted his head. His glowing crimson eyes scanned the courtyard. The air grew heavy. Even Alpha Tristan felt the pressure of that gaze. "Lying," someone whispered in fear. "Could only be one person. The Lycan King." A ripple of shock spread through the pack. No one spoke or moved. The Lycan King stepped forward calmly, his movements controlled and effortless. Then he turned toward the open car behind him. And held out his hand. The gesture was simple but respectful. As if offering his hand to someone extremely important. The entire pack watched in stunned silence. Who could possibly deserve such respect from the Lycan King? A moment passed. Then a slender hand appeared from inside the car. The Lycan King gently helped the woman step out. And the world seemed to stop. She wore a long black coat that flowed around her like midnight. Her hair moved softly in the wind. The moment her feet touched the ground, an unfamiliar scent spread across the courtyard. A scent so strong that every wolf instinctively lowered their head. Even the pack elders looked shaken. Tristan's wolf stirred uneasily inside him. Something about her scent felt strangely familiar. But that was impossible. The woman lifted her head slowly. Her eyes swept across the pack and then her gaze landed on Tristan. For a moment neither of them moved. Tristan's heart suddenly slammed against his chest. Recognition hit him like lightning. "No," he whispered. It couldn't be. The woman standing beside the Lycan King was someone he had not seen in 5 years. Someone he believed was long gone or dead, perhaps. But there was no mistake. Those eyes. That face. "Elara," Tristan breathed. Gasps erupted around the courtyard. The wolves stared between them in confusion. Elara Hale. The woman who had once lived in this pack. The woman who had disappeared years ago. But the Elara standing before them now looked nothing like the girl they remembered. She stood taller and stronger. Her presence carried an authority that made even seasoned warriors uneasy. The Lycan King stepped forward slightly. Then his deep voice echoed across the courtyard. Alpha Tristan Blackwood. The Alpha forced himself to stand straight. Yes. The Lycan King's crimson gaze locked onto him. You once ruled over this territory. Tristan frowned slightly. Once. The Lycan King gestured calmly toward the woman beside him. Allow me to introduce someone. The entire pack held their breath. The Lycan King gently placed his hand on Elara's back. His voice carried across the courtyard like thunder. This woman is Elara Hale. Murmurs spread instantly. Some wolves looked shocked. Others confused, but the Lycan King was not finished. He raised his voice slightly. And she is the Lycan Queen. Even the wind seemed to stop. The pack stared at Elara in disbelief. The girl who had once lived among them. The girl they had mocked. The girl who had vanished after being banished. Now stood before them as the most powerful woman in the werewolf world. Tristan's face went pale. That's impossible, he said quietly. The Lycan King's expression hardened. Is it? Tristan's gaze snapped toward Elara again. Memories flooded his mind. 5 years ago, the night he had rejected her. The night he had banished her from the pack. He remembered the look on her face. The pain and the humiliation. He had believed she would never survive the wilderness. Yet here she was. Standing beside the Lycan King himself. Elara stepped forward slowly. The pack instinctively moved aside to create a path. Her heels clicked softly against the stone ground as she walked. Finally, she stopped a few feet away from Tristan. For several seconds neither of them spoke. Then Tristan forced out the question burning in his mind. How are you alive? Elara tilted her head slightly. A faint smile appeared on her lips. But it held no warmth. Did you expect me to die? Tristan clenched his jaw. You were banished. Alone. No pack survives that. Her eyes darkened. But I did. The Lycan King stepped closer beside her. His presence alone sent waves of power through the courtyard. Not only did she survive, he said calmly. She rose. His gaze swept across the pack. And tonight. His voice deepened. She returns. A heavy silence followed. Then Elara finally spoke again. Her voice was calm. But every word carried sharp authority. I came back to remind this pack of something. Tristan's stomach tightened. And what is that? Elara's eyes glowed faintly silver. The night you banished me. The courtyard held its breath. You made the greatest mistake of your life. And for the first time in 5 years, Alpha Tristan felt fear. 5 years earlier, the night Alpha Tristan banished me was colder than any winter I had ever known. Not because of the wind, but because of the way the pack looked at me. Like I was nothing. Like I didn't belong. The heavy iron gates of the Silver Moon pack slammed shut behind me with a deafening clang. The sound echoed through the forest like the final note of a funeral bell. I stood there for a moment, staring at the towering walls that had once protected me. Once this place had been my home. Now it was just another territory that wanted me dead. 2 guards stood on the other side of the gate. I could hear them whispering. Do you think she'll survive? Not a chance. Their voices faded as they walked away. They didn't even bother watching me leave. To them I was already dead. My wolf whimpered inside me. The mate bond had snapped when Tristan rejected me. The pain still burned inside my chest. It felt like someone had ripped out a piece of my soul. I pressed my hand against my heart, trying to breathe through the agony. But the forest around me didn't care about my pain. Cold wind rushed through the trees. Branches creaked overhead. The scent of wild animals filled the air. And somewhere far away, a wolf howled. I forced myself to start walking. If I stayed near the pack border too long, patrol wolves might come looking for trouble. And rogues loved hunting near pack territories. Especially when they knew a lone wolf had just been banished. The deeper I walked into the forest, the darker it became. The moonlight barely reached the ground through the thick canopy of branches. My feet were already sore. My body still weak from the emotional shock of the rejection. But I kept moving because stopping meant death. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange in the wilderness. Every sound made my heart jump. A snapping twig. A rustling bush. The distant hoot of an owl. My wolf stayed quiet inside me. Usually she was strong and protective. But tonight she was hurting. The rejection had wounded her just as badly as it had wounded me. Finally, exhaustion forced me to stop. I leaned against a large oak tree and slid down until I was sitting on the cold ground. My legs trembled. My throat burned with thirst. I hadn't eaten since morning. I closed my eyes for a moment and memories flooded back. Tristan's cold voice. The laughter of the pack. The humiliation of being dragged through the courtyard. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I wiped them away angrily. No, I whispered to myself. I refused to cry for him. If Tristan believed I was weak, then I would prove him wrong. I pushed myself back to my feet. But before I could take another step, a low growl echoed through the trees. My body froze. The sound came again. Closer this time. Another growl answered it. Then another. My heart began pounding wildly. Rogues. I slowly turned my head. 3 figures stepped out from the darkness. Their eyes glowed yellow under the faint moonlight. Their clothes were torn. Their faces covered in dirt and scars. Rogue wolves. The most dangerous predators in the forest. Well, look what we found, one of them said with a crooked grin. His voice was rough and mocking. A little lost puppy. The others laughed. Their scent told me everything I needed to know. Rogues didn't follow pack laws. They killed whoever they wanted. Please, I said quietly. I'm not looking for trouble. The tallest rogue sniffed the air. His grin widened. She smells like pack wolf. Another rogue stepped closer. And recently rejected. Their laughter grew louder. You're alone, one said. No pack. No mate. No protection. Fear crawled up my spine. My wolf tried to rise, but I was too weak. Let me pass, I said. The rogues exchanged amused glances. Then the tallest one shook his head. Sorry, sweetheart. His eyes darkened. But the forest belongs to us. The 3 of them began circling me slowly. Like predators closing in on prey. My heart hammered in my chest. I tried to back away, but my legs hit the tree behind me. I was trapped. One rogue stepped closer. So tell me, he said, tilting his head. Did your alpha throw you away? The others laughed again. That must hurt. Pathetic. Something inside me snapped. I am not pathetic, I said through clenched teeth. The rogue smirked. Really? Then he lunged. Everything happened in a blur. I barely managed to dodge his claws as they slashed toward my face. Pain exploded across my arm. Warm blood dripped onto the ground. The other 2 rogues jumped forward. I tried to fight back. But 3 against 1 was impossible. A kick knocked me to the ground. My head slammed against a rock. Stars exploded in my vision. The rogues surrounded me again. This is boring, one of them said. Let's finish it. The tallest rogue grabbed my hair and yanked my head up. His breath smelled like blood. Any last words? My vision blurred. Maybe Tristan was right. Maybe I was weak. Maybe this was how my story ended. Alone in the forest. Killed by rogues. But suddenly something strange happened. A burning heat spread through my chest. It wasn't pain. It was power. My wolf stirred violently inside me. The rogue holding my hair froze. Wait, he muttered. What is that scent? The heat spread through my veins like wildfire. My heart began beating faster. The ground beneath me trembled slightly. The rogue stepped back in confusion. My eyes snapped open. The world looked different, and when I looked up at the rogues, their faces were filled with fear. That's impossible, one whispered. My eyes began glowing silver. The air around me pulsed with energy. The rogue who had grabbed me released my hair instantly. No ordinary wolf smells like that, he said nervously. What are you? I slowly stood up. The pain in my body faded. Replaced by something powerful. Something ancient. Even I didn't understand it. I don't know, I whispered. But the rogues clearly did. One of them stepped back. That scent. His voice shook. It's royal. The word echoed in my mind. Before anyone could react, a powerful howl echoed across the mountains. The rogues turned pale. That's not possible, one whispered. But it was. Because far away, in a fortress hidden deep within the northern mountains, a man suddenly stood from his throne. His glowing crimson eyes looked toward the distant forest. A slow smile appeared on his face. Because he had just felt something awaken. Something he had searched for his entire life. His mate. the future Lycan Queen. And for the first time in centuries, the Lycan King was leaving his kingdom. He was coming for her. The rogues were afraid. I could smell it. Their earlier confidence had vanished, replaced by something far more interesting. Fear. The three of them slowly backed away from me as the strange silver glow in my eyes reflected in the darkness. "What are you?" one of them whispered again. I didn't answer. Because the truth was I didn't know. The heat inside my body continued to spread through my veins like wildfire. My heart pounded harder than ever before and my senses felt sharper than they had ever been in my entire life. The forest suddenly seemed alive. I could hear everything. The rustling of leaves. The distant cry of a night bird. Even the nervous breathing of the rogues standing a few feet away. "This isn't normal," the tallest rogue muttered. Another one shook his head nervously. "No Omega smells like this." Omega. The word echoed bitterly in my mind. That was what the Silver Moon Pack had always called me, but the rogues clearly didn't see me that way anymore. The one standing closest to me suddenly growled. "I don't care what she is." His claws extended. "If she's alone, she's still prey." He lunged forward again. But before he could reach me, a powerful gust of wind tore through the forest. The trees shook violently. Leaves spiraled through the air. And then a terrifying presence filled the clearing. Every instinct in my body screamed at once. The rogues froze completely still. Their eyes widened with horror. Slow footsteps echoed behind them. A deep voice broke the silence. "You should not have touched her." The rogues turned slowly. And the moment they saw the man standing behind them, their faces drained of color. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing that seemed to absorb the moonlight. His presence alone made the air feel heavier. More dangerous. His crimson eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. And his aura, it was overwhelming. Even my wolf reacted instantly. She stirred inside me with sudden excitement. The rogues dropped to their knees immediately. "Your Majesty," one of them gasped. The title echoed through the clearing. "Your Majesty." I stared at the stranger in confusion. The man's gaze moved slowly past the kneeling rogues until it landed on me. The moment our eyes met, something inside me shifted. A strange warmth spread through my chest. My wolf stirred again. Stronger this time. "Mate." The word echoed faintly in my mind. The man's crimson eyes softened slightly as he studied me. "So," he said quietly, "I finally found you." My heart skipped a beat. "Found me?" The Lycan King stepped forward. The rogues quickly crawled backward to give him space. None of them dared stand. None of them dared look directly at him. His attention remained completely focused on me. "You're injured," he said calmly. Only then did I remember the deep cut on my arm. Blood still stained my sleeve. But strangely, the pain was already fading. The Lycan King raised one eyebrow slightly. "They hurt you." His voice was still calm. But something dark flashed in his eyes. One of the rogues immediately shook his head frantically. "Your Majesty, we didn't know." The Lycan King didn't even look at him. But the pressure in the air suddenly increased. The rogue choked mid-sentence. The other two rogues began trembling violently. "You attacked someone who belongs to me," the Lycan King said quietly. "Belongs to him?" The word stunned me. "I don't belong to anyone," I said weakly. The Lycan King looked back at me. And for the first time a small smile appeared on his face. "Not yet," he replied. Then his gaze returned to the rogues. The smile disappeared instantly. "Leave." The word carried terrifying authority. The rogues didn't hesitate. They scrambled to their feet and ran into the forest as fast as possible. Within seconds they were gone. The clearing became silent again. Just the two of us remained. The Lycan King slowly walked closer. Every step made my heart race faster. Now that the rogues were gone, I could feel his presence even more clearly. It was powerful. When he finally stopped in front of me, I realized how tall he was. I had to tilt my head slightly to meet his eyes. "Who are you?" I asked. The question sounded foolish the moment it left my mouth. Because deep down I already knew. But hearing it out loud felt impossible. The man studied me carefully for a moment. Then he spoke. "I am Kale." He paused slightly. "King of the Lycans." The words echoed through my mind. Lycan King. The most powerful werewolf in existence. The ruler of the ancient bloodline. And he was standing in front of me. My legs nearly gave out. The Lycan King noticed immediately. He gently reached out and steadied me before I could fall. The moment his hand touched my arm, electricity shot through my body. My wolf reacted instantly. Mate. The word echoed loudly in my mind. My breath caught. The Lycan King's eyes darkened slightly. He had felt it too. For a moment neither of us spoke. The forest seemed to hold its breath. You feel it, he said quietly. I nodded slowly. Yes. The bond between us pulsed faintly, but undeniably real. I don't understand, I whispered. I already had a mate. Pain flashed across my chest at the memory of Tristan. The Lycan King's expression hardened slightly. You had someone who did not deserve you. His voice carried quiet anger. You mean Tristan? The name sounded bitter. He rejected me. The Lycan King's crimson eyes flickered dangerously. Yes. You know about that? I felt it. The answer stunned me. When a Lycan's true mate suffers, he explained calmly, the bond echoes across the world. My heart skipped. You mean? The Lycan King nodded. I felt the moment your mate rejected you. His voice lowered slightly. And the moment your power awakened. My mind raced. So that thing that happened earlier. The silver eyes, he said. That was your bloodline waking up. Pi bloodline. The Lycan King studied me carefully. Then he spoke the words that changed everything. You are not an Omega. The forest fell silent. You are something far more rare. I held my breath. The Lycan King's gaze softened again. You are Lycan. The word echoed in my mind. Everything Tristan had believed I wasn't. But how? I whispered. I grew up in the Silver Moon Pack. The Lycan King's expression darkened slightly. Which means someone hid the truth from you. My mind struggled to process everything. Before I could ask another question, the Lycan King suddenly reached out and gently lifted my injured arm. His thumb brushed lightly against the wound. Warm energy flowed from his touch. Within seconds the cut began healing. I stared in shock. How did you do that? He looked at me calmly. You are my mate. The words sent another wave of warmth through my chest. And that means, he continued quietly, it is my duty to protect you. My heart raced. But why me? The Lycan King's crimson eyes softened again. Because you were never meant to live as an outcast. He stepped slightly closer. You were meant to rule. The wind moved softly through the trees. And for the first time since my banishment, hope flickered inside my heart. But the Lycan King's next words carried a promise far greater than hope. You will return to the world that rejected you, he said calmly. And when you do, his crimson eyes glowed with quiet power. They will kneel. The journey to the Lycan Kingdom began before sunrise. The forest was still dark when King Kale's warriors arrived. I had barely slept. Too many thoughts crowded my mind. Lycan. Mate. Queen. None of those words felt real yet. Yet the moment the Lycan warriors stepped into the clearing, I understood something immediately. They were different from ordinary wolves. Their presence carried a quiet authority that reminded me of Kale himself. 6 of them emerged from the trees, dressed in dark armor, their eyes glowing faintly in the morning mist. They stopped several steps away from us. Then every one of them bowed. Your Majesty, their leader said respectfully. Kale nodded once. Prepare the horses. The warriors immediately moved to obey. I watched them in silence. Even among these powerful warriors, Kale stood apart. Not just as their king but as something ancient. Something they respected on a deeper level. Kale turned toward me. You're quiet. I'm thinking, I admitted. That's dangerous. A faint smile appeared on his face. It was the first time I had seen him look almost relaxed. I just discovered my entire life might be a lie, I said. That tends to make people think. His expression softened slightly. That's fair. One of the warriors approached with 2 horses. Massive black stallions. The kind bred for war. Kale took the reins of one and turned back toward me. Can you ride? Yes. Good. He helped me onto the horse with ease. Then he mounted the other one in a single smooth motion. Within minutes the warriors formed around us. 4 rode ahead. 2 behind. Like a moving shield. We began riding north. The deeper we traveled into the mountains, the colder the air became. The forest slowly changed. The trees grew taller. It felt like entering another world. Hours passed as we rode through winding mountain paths. No one spoke much. But I could feel the warriors occasionally glancing toward me. Their future queen. The thought still felt strange. Eventually, the path climbed higher into the mountains. The forest began to thin. And then I saw it. The Lycan Kingdom. My breath caught in my throat. Built directly into the mountainside was a fortress unlike anything I had ever seen. Massive stone towers rose toward the sky. Ancient walls stretched across the cliffs like the spine of some sleeping giant. Waterfalls cascaded down the mountain behind it, glowing silver in the sunlight. And surrounding the fortress, hundreds of wolves. Training, patrolling and living. This, I whispered, is home. Kale's voice was quiet beside me. We approached the main gates. 2 enormous iron doors guarded the entrance. The moment the guards saw Kale, they immediately stepped aside. Open the gates. The massive doors slowly creaked open. As we entered the fortress, something unexpected happened. Every wolf we passed stopped what they were doing and bowed. Not just to Kale but to me. Confused whispers spread through the courtyard. Who is she? Is that the human girl? No. Look at her eyes. I lowered my gaze slightly, uncomfortable under so many stares. But Kale leaned slightly closer. Lift your head. His voice was calm but firm. You are not someone who hides. Slowly I raised my head again. The whispers grew louder. We rode deeper into the fortress until we reached a massive stone courtyard. At the center stood a towering palace carved directly into the mountain. It looked ancient. Like it had existed for centuries. Kale dismounted first. Then he offered his hand to help me down. The moment my feet touched the ground, the doors of the palace opened. Several figures stepped out. Older Lycans. Their presence felt powerful. But even they bowed slightly when they saw Kale. The one standing at the front stepped forward. An older man with silver hair and sharp golden eyes. Your Majesty, he greeted. Then his gaze shifted toward me. And his expression froze. Silence fell over the courtyard. The old Lycan studied my face carefully. Then slowly he knelt. Shock rippled through the others. Welcome home, he said quietly. Your Majesty. My heart skipped. Kale watched him calmly. You recognize her? The old Lycan nodded. I recognize the blood. My mind spun. What blood? The old Lycan stood slowly. You carry the bloodline of the first Lycan Queen. The words echoed across the courtyard. Gasps spread through the warriors. Even Kale seemed slightly surprised. That is older than we expected, he said. The old Lycan turned to me again. Your ancestors once ruled beside the Lycan kings. But that bloodline vanished centuries ago. I stared at him. You're saying I'm royal, he finished. The words sent chills down my spine. Everything Tristan had believed about me. Everything the Silver Moon Pack had said about me. Weak and useless Omega. All of it had been wrong. Kale stepped closer beside me. You were never meant to live in a small pack. His voice carried quiet certainty. You were meant to rule beside me. My heart raced. But I don't know anything about ruling. The old Lycan chuckled softly. That can be learned. Then his expression became serious. But power like yours. He looked directly into my eyes. That cannot. I swallowed slowly. So what happens now? Kale's crimson gaze softened slightly. Now. He gestured toward the palace behind us. You begin becoming who you were always meant to be. His voice grew firmer. You will train. You will learn. And one day, a faint smile touched his lips. You will return to the world that rejected you. Images of Silver Moon Pack flashed through my mind. Tristan. The humiliation. The banishment. Kale's voice dropped slightly. And when that day comes, his eyes glowed faintly red. They will kneel before their queen. For the first time since the night I was banished, I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. And somewhere far away, in the Silver Moon Pack territory, Alpha Tristan suddenly felt a strange chill run down his spine. He didn't know why. But something deep inside him whispered a warning. The woman he had thrown away was coming back. And when she did, everything would change. Life inside the Lycan Kingdom was nothing like life in the Silver Moon Pack. Everything here was stronger. The warriors. The training. Even the air itself felt heavier with power. 3 days had passed since my arrival, yet I still felt like I was walking through someone else's dream. A dream where I was suddenly expected to become a queen. But the Lycans wasted no time preparing me. The training started at sunrise every day without exception. The training grounds were enormous, carved into the mountainside behind the fortress. Hundreds of warriors practiced there, their movements sharp and disciplined. The moment I stepped onto the stone field for the first time, every conversation stopped. Every warrior turned to look at me. Whispers spread immediately. That's her. The new queen. Is she really Lycan? I ignored them as best as I could. But their curiosity burned into my back. Standing beside me was the old Lycan I had met on my first day. His name was General Varric. He had served the Lycan Kings for decades. And apparently he had been assigned to train me. Varric crossed his arms as he studied me carefully. You've been trained before, he said. Yes, I replied. I was a border scout in my pack. Varric nodded slowly. That explains your stance. He walked around me slowly, evaluating. But pack training and Lycan training are very different things. I raised an eyebrow. How different? Varric gave a faint smile. You'll see. He suddenly tossed a wooden practice sword toward me. I caught it easily. Good reflexes, he said. Then he grabbed one himself. Now show me what you can do. The surrounding warriors quickly formed a wide circle around us. I could feel their eyes watching every movement. Varric stepped forward. Attack. I didn't hesitate. I lunged forward, swinging the wooden sword toward his shoulder. Varric blocked the strike effortlessly. The impact barely moved him. I attacked again. Faster this time. Another block. Then another. Within seconds I realized something. Varric wasn't even trying. My attacks were nothing to him. Frustration built inside me. I swung harder. But every strike was blocked effortlessly. Finally, Varric stepped forward and gently tapped my shoulder with his sword. A move that would have been fatal in real combat. Dead, he said calmly. The watching warriors murmured quietly. I lowered my sword, breathing harder. Again, I said. Varric raised an eyebrow. Already frustrated? I just started. The old Lycan chuckled. Good. He reset his stance. Again. This time I attacked more carefully, studying his movements, looking for openings. But Varric was faster, stronger. Every move I made was countered before it even finished. Within minutes he had disarmed me completely. The wooden sword flew from my hand and landed several feet away. Dead again, he said calmly. Embarrassed whispers spread through the watching warriors. I clenched my fist. I'm not weak. Varric studied me carefully. I know. Then why can't I beat you? Because you're holding back. I frowned. I'm not. Varric shook his head slowly. Yes, you are. He pointed toward my chest. You're fighting like a pack wolf. Then he pointed toward my eyes. But you're not one. The words echoed in my mind. You're Lycan, Varric continued. That means your strength comes from instinct. From dominance. From power. He stepped closer. But right now you're still thinking like someone who spent her life being told she was weak. Something inside me stirred. Anger and pain. Memories of Tristan's voice echoed in my head. Weak. Unworthy. Useless. My grip tightened. Varric nodded slightly. Good. He stepped back and raised his sword again. Now stop thinking. Fight. The watching warriors fell silent. I picked up my sword again. But this time I didn't think. I moved fast. Faster than before. Varric's eyes widened slightly as my sword struck toward him. He blocked it. But the impact was stronger this time. I attacked again and again. My movements became quicker and sharper. The heat inside my body returned. The same strange power from the forest began spreading through my veins. Varric stepped back slightly in surprise. Good, he said. Yes. My vision sharpened. My heart pounded louder. The world seemed slower. I struck again. Varric blocked the attack. But this time his feet slid slightly across the ground. Gasps spread through the watching warriors. Varric's eyes narrowed with interest. There it is. I attacked again. This time my eyes flashed silver. The wooden sword cracked as it collided with Varric's. The force pushed him back 2 full steps. The warriors around us stared in shock. That's strength. That's Lycan power. Varric lowered his sword slowly and satisfied. Well done. My breathing was heavy. The power slowly faded. My eyes returned to normal. What just happened? I asked. Varric smiled slightly. You stopped fighting like someone who was rejected. His voice softened. You started fighting like a queen. The warriors around us bowed their heads slightly in respect. Before I could respond, a deep voice spoke from behind the crowd. Impressive. Every warrior immediately stepped aside. King Kale walked onto the training ground. His crimson eyes studied me carefully. You're learning faster than expected. I wiped sweat from my forehead. I had a good teacher. Varric bowed slightly. The queen has strong instincts. Kale's gaze remained on me. Instincts are only the beginning. He stepped closer. The real challenge is control. Before I could ask what he meant, Kale suddenly removed his coat and tossed it aside. Gasps spread across the training ground. Even Varric looked surprised. Your Majesty? Kale ignored him. His crimson eyes remained locked on me. Let's see how strong you really are. My heart skipped. You want to fight me? A faint smile appeared on his face. Yes. The warriors around us stepped back quickly, forming a larger circle. No one spoke. Because everyone understood something. This was not just training anymore. This was a test. Kale raised his hand slightly. Come at me. I hesitated. You're the Lycan King. And you're the Lycan Queen. His voice remained calm. Prove it. The power inside my chest flared again. This time stronger. Slowly my eyes began glowing silver. And for the first time since my banishment, I felt unstoppable. Far away in the Silver Moon Pack territory, Alpha Tristan woke suddenly from a nightmare. Sweat covered his forehead. His heart pounded wildly. In his dream, he had seen Elara standing beside a powerful king, her eyes glowing silver, and every wolf in the pack kneeling before her. Tristan shook his head angrily. It's impossible, he muttered. But deep down something inside him whispered the truth. The woman he had banished was becoming something far more dangerous. A queen. The entire training ground had gone silent. Hundreds of Lycan warriors stood in a wide circle, their eyes fixed on the center of the field. On one side stood King Kale, ruler of the Lycans. On the other side stood me, the woman who had once been called weak. A strange tension filled the air. Even the wind seemed to slow. Varric stepped back from the circle, watching carefully. No one dared interrupt. Because this was no longer ordinary training. This was a test. Kale rolled his shoulders slowly, loosening his muscles as if preparing for battle. His calm confidence made my heart race faster. You can still step back, he said. His voice was calm. Almost gentle. No one would blame you. I tightened my grip on the wooden sword. I didn't come this far to step back. A faint smile touched his lips. Good. He lifted his hand slightly. Then show me your strength. I moved first. The moment my feet pushed against the ground, the heat inside my body surged again. My eyes flashed silver. Gasps rippled through the watching warriors. I swung the sword toward his shoulder. Kale blocked the strike easily. But the impact echoed loudly across the training ground. I attacked again. Faster and stronger. Kale blocked every strike. But this time he was actually moving. The warriors around us began whispering quietly. She's forcing the king to defend. That's impossible. Kale's crimson eyes glowed faintly as he studied my movements. Better, he said. But not enough. Suddenly he moved. His speed shocked me. One moment he was standing in front of me. The next moment he was behind me. Before I could react, the wooden sword was knocked from my hand. It flew across the ground. Kale's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against him. Dead, he whispered. My heart slammed violently against my ribs. His voice was so close. His warmth against my back made my wolf stir inside me. Mate. The word echoed again. I quickly stepped away from him, trying to focus. You're cheating, I said. A small laugh escaped him. There are no rules in real combat. He stepped back into the center of the circle. Again. I grabbed another wooden sword from the ground. This time I didn't rush. I studied him carefully. Every movement. Every shift of weight. Then I attacked. The fight exploded across the training ground. Wood clashed against wood again and again. The warriors watched in stunned silence. As something unexpected was happening. I was improving fast. Every attack became stronger. Every movement sharper. The silver glow in my eyes grew brighter. The heat inside my veins roared like wildfire. Kale's expression slowly changed. From calm amusement to serious focus. Finally, our swords collided one more time. The force cracked both wooden blades in half. The broken pieces fell to the ground. Neither of us moved. The training ground was completely silent. Kale slowly lowered his hands. Well done. My chest rose and fell as I tried to catch my breath. You weren't holding back, I said. No. Good. A small smile appeared on his face. You survived longer than any warrior here. The watching Lycans murmured with surprise. Varric nodded approvingly from the sidelines. But Kale wasn't finished. He stepped closer again. Close enough that I could see the faint scar running across his jaw. You're beginning to understand your strength. His voice softened slightly. But strength alone does not make a queen. I tilted my head. Then what does? Kale looked directly into my eyes. Control. The silver glow in my eyes slowly faded. What happens if I lose control? Kale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out and gently lifted my hand. The moment his skin touched mine, the mate bond pulsed again. You won't, he said quietly. Because you won't face it alone. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The world around us seemed distant. The warriors, the training ground, and everything faded. All I could feel was the warmth of his hand. And the strange connection between us. Finally, Varric cleared his throat loudly. Your Majesty. Kale released my hand slowly. Yes. The council is waiting. Kale nodded. I'll be there shortly. Varric bowed and walked away. The other warriors slowly returned to their training. Within minutes, the training ground was nearly empty. Kale and I stood alone in the center. You did well today, he said. I still have a lot to learn. Yes. His honesty made me laugh slightly. But you're learning faster than anyone expected. I hesitated before asking the question that had been bothering me since the forest. How long were you searching for me? Kale's expression grew thoughtful. Years. The answer surprised me. You didn't even know me. No, he admitted. But I knew my mate was out there. His gaze softened slightly. And I knew she was suffering. My chest tightened. You felt that? Yes. The bond between Lycans is stronger than ordinary wolves. He paused. When Tristan rejected you. His eyes darkened slightly. I felt it like a blade through my chest. The anger in his voice was quiet but powerful. That's why you came to the forest. Yes. He studied me carefully. And I will never allow anyone to hurt you like that again. His words carried a quiet promise. A promise that made my heart beat faster. But suddenly, a horn echoed across the fortress. Kale's head snapped toward the palace. That's the war horn. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? Kale's expression hardened instantly. It means someone has crossed into Lycan territory. Within seconds, warriors began rushing across the courtyard. Weapons drawn and armor clattering. Varric ran toward us. Your Majesty. Kale turned toward him. What happened? A patrol captured a spy. Varric's voice was tense. He came from the Silver Moon Pack. The words froze the air around us. My heart skipped. Silver Moon. Tristan's pack. Kale's crimson eyes darkened dangerously. Bring him to the throne hall. Varric nodded and hurried away. Kale turned back toward me. Stay here. No. The answer came out immediately. His eyebrow lifted slightly. You're not ready for this. That spy came from my old pack, I said firmly. If Tristan sent him. I met his gaze. I want to hear what he has to say. Kale studied me for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. His voice grew colder. Let's see what your former Alpha wants. But deep in the Silver Moon Pack territory, Alpha Tristan stood in the courtyard, staring toward the distant mountains. He didn't know why. But something inside him whispered that the past he had tried to forget was about to return. And this time Elara would not be the one kneeling. The throne hall of the Lycan kingdom was unlike anything I had ever seen. Massive stone pillars lined the chamber, carved with ancient symbols of the Lycan bloodline. Torches burned along the walls, their flames dancing against the dark stone. At the far end of the hall stood the throne, a towering seat carved directly from the mountain itself. King Kale walked toward it with slow, controlled steps. The moment he sat down, the entire hall seemed to grow heavier with power. I stood beside him, slightly behind the throne, where a queen would stand. The council members filled the sides of the hall. Varric entered moments later with several warriors. Between them was a man bound in chains. His clothes were torn and dirty, and his face was bruised from capture. But the moment I saw him, recognition struck me. I knew him. He had been a guard in the Silver Moon Pack. His name was Darren. The moment Darren looked up and saw me standing beside the Lycan King, his face turned pale. Elara. The name echoed through the hall. Several Lycans turned toward me in curiosity. Darren's eyes widened with disbelief. You're alive. Kale leaned slightly forward on his throne. You know this woman? Darren swallowed hard. Yes, your majesty. Kale's crimson eyes darkened. And why would a spy from the Silver Moon Pack know the Lycan Queen? Darren looked between us nervously. Queen. The word clearly shocked him. Varric stepped forward. Answer the king. Darren quickly lowered his head. She used to live in our pack. The council murmured quietly. Kale's voice remained calm. I know. His gaze hardened. What I want to know is why your Alpha sent a spy into my territory. Darren hesitated. Fear flickered across his face. Kale raised one finger slightly. The pressure in the room instantly increased. Darren dropped to his knees. I'll talk. His voice shook. I'll tell you everything. Kale gestured slightly. Speak. Darren glanced at me again, still stunned. Alpha Tristan sent me to investigate rumors. Rumors of what? Kale asked. Darren hesitated again. Rumors that someone powerful had appeared in the Lycan kingdom. Kale's expression remained unreadable. And? Darren looked down. Some wolves in our territory claimed they saw a woman with silver eyes traveling with Lycan warriors. The council exchanged curious glances. Silver eyes. Eyes. Kale's voice turned colder. And your Alpha believed these rumors? Darren nodded nervously. Yes. And why would he care? Darren swallowed hard. Because the description sounded like someone he knew. Silence fell across the hall. Kale slowly leaned back in his throne. Go on. Darren took a shaky breath. For the past year, Alpha Tristan has been having the same dream. My heart skipped. What dream? Kale asked. Darren hesitated before answering. He dreams of a woman returning to the pack. My chest tightened. A woman with glowing silver eyes. The council grew quiet. Darren continued. In the dream, every wolf in the pack kneels before her. My hands slowly clenched. And Tristan? Kale asked. Darren's voice dropped. In the dream. He kneels too. Silence filled the throne hall. Kale turned his head slightly toward me. Our eyes met. I could see the faint amusement in his gaze. He fears you, Kale said quietly. Darren quickly nodded. Yes. Alpha Tristan believes the woman in his dreams will destroy his pack. The words hung in the air. For a moment no one spoke. Then Kale stood slowly from his throne. The entire hall seemed to tense. He walked down the steps toward Darren. Each step echoed heavily against the stone floor. When he stopped in front of the captured spy, Darren didn't dare look up. You came here to see if those rumors were true. Darren nodded weakly. Yes. Your Majesty. Kale's crimson eyes glowed faintly. Now you have your answer. Darren slowly lifted his head. His eyes landed on me again. Still standing beside the throne. Still wearing the black coat of the Lycan Queen. Shock filled his face. You really are alive, he whispered. And more powerful than any of us imagined. I stepped forward slowly. Darren instinctively flinched. Tell me something, I said quietly. He looked at me nervously. Yes, my queen. The title sounded strange coming from someone who once watched me get banished. After I was exiled. My voice remained calm. What did Tristan tell the pack? Darren hesitated. Then he answered honestly. He said you ran away. My stomach tightened. He told everyone you were too weak to survive on your own. Anger flickered through my chest. And the pack believed him? Darren nodded. At first. My eyes narrowed slightly. At first. Darren glanced nervously toward Kale. Then back at me. Things changed. What do you mean? Darren took a deep breath. Since you left, the Silver Moon Pack has been falling apart. The council leaned forward with interest. Explain, Kale ordered. Darren swallowed. Several warriors left the pack. Why? Kale asked. They disagreed with Tristan's decision to banish you. My heart skipped. Some believed you were treated unfairly. The thought surprised me. Not everyone had supported Tristan. Darren continued. And recently, rogue attacks near our territory have increased. Kale's expression grew serious. And Tristan. Darren hesitated again. He's becoming unstable. The word echoed through the hall. In what way? Kale asked. He's paranoid. Darren lowered his voice. He keeps talking about the woman from his dreams. My silver eyes flickered slightly. He believes she's coming back. Darren nodded. Yes. And when she does? Darren's voice trembled. He believes the entire pack will kneel before her. Silence filled the throne hall again. Kale turned slightly toward me. A faint smile appeared on his lips. It seems your former alpha already understands his future. I crossed my arms slowly. Maybe. Kale's crimson gaze sharpened. Do you plan to prove him right? The question hung in the air. Every Lycan in the hall watched me carefully, waiting for my answer. For a moment, memories flashed through my mind. The courtyard. The humiliation. The night I was thrown out like nothing. My silver eyes glowed faintly. Yes. My voice echoed clearly through the hall. I do. Kale's smile widened slightly. Good. He turned back toward Darren. You've been very helpful. Darren lowered his head quickly. Thank you, Your Majesty. Kale gestured toward the guards. Release him. The warriors looked surprised. But Your Majesty. Let him go. Kale's voice was firm. He will return to his alpha. The guards unlocked Darren's chains. Confused but relieved, Darren slowly stood. Kale's crimson eyes locked onto him one final time. When you return to Tristan. His voice carried quiet authority. Tell him the truth. Darren nodded quickly. What truth? Kale gestured slightly toward me. That the woman he banished. His gaze darkened. Is no longer weak. Darren swallowed nervously. And tell him something else. Kale's voice grew colder. Soon. He paused. The Lycan Queen will visit his pack. A chill ran through the hall. Darren nodded quickly. I will tell him. Kale turned away. Then go. The guards escorted Darren out of the throne hall. Silence remained after he left. Then Varric spoke quietly. Your Majesty. Kale looked at him. Yes. The Silver Moon Pack will prepare for war after hearing that message. Kale's expression remained calm. Good. Then his gaze shifted back toward me. Because this time the return would not be quiet. The return of the Lycan Queen would shake the entire werewolf world. By the time we returned to the Lycan Kingdom, the first light of dawn had begun creeping over the mountains. The fortress gates opened as our horses approached. Warriors bowed as Kale and I rode through the courtyard. But this time something felt different. The whispers were louder. The curiosity in their eyes had changed into anticipation. They had heard the news. The spy, the Silver Moon Pack. The coming confrontation. Inside the palace, the council was already waiting. Varric stood beside the long stone table in the council chamber, arms crossed as he studied the map spread across its surface. Several elder Lycans stood nearby. When Kale and I entered, they immediately straightened. Your Majesty, Varric greeted. Kale walked toward the table. They're weakening faster than expected. Varric nodded. Our scouts reported the same thing. One of the elders looked at me. Is it true their warriors are leaving the pack? Yes, I answered. They're losing faith in Tristan. Another elder leaned forward. Then this may be the perfect moment to strike. Kale raised one hand slightly. The room fell silent. We are not attacking. The elder looked surprised. But Your Majesty, if their pack is unstable. Kale's crimson eyes sharpened. This is not our war. The room grew quiet again. I understood what he meant. The Silver Moon Pack wasn't the Lycan Kingdom's enemy. It was mine. Kale turned toward me. This decision belongs to you. The entire council shifted their attention to me. I slowly stepped closer to the map. The territory of the Silver Moon Pack was marked clearly among the forests. For years I had believed that place was my home. But now it looked smaller. Weaker. I rested my hands on the edge of the table. What happens if I return? I asked quietly. Varric answered first. 2 possibilities. I looked at him. First, Tristan could surrender. Several elders chuckled softly. He won't, one of them muttered. Varric nodded. Which brings us to the second possibility. War. The word hung in the air. I wasn't afraid of it. But I also didn't want innocent wolves to die. Kale seemed to sense my thoughts. You don't have to destroy the pack, he said. I know. But you must decide what kind of queen you want to be. His words stayed in my mind. What kind of queen? A queen ruled with power. But also with judgment. I studied the map again. There's another option. The council leaned closer. What option? Varric asked. I challenged Tristan. The room fell silent. Kale's eyebrow lifted slightly. A challenge. I nodded. Alpha against Queen. Varric considered the idea carefully. If Tristan accepts and loses, the pack becomes yours. And if he refuses, one elder asked. Then every wolf will see his weakness. The council exchanged thoughtful glances. Kale slowly smiled. A public challenge. Yes. I straightened. In front of the entire pack. Varric nodded slowly. That would end the conflict quickly. Another elder looked concerned. But Tristan is still an alpha. I met his gaze. And I am no longer the wolf he rejected. Kale's smile widened slightly. That much is obvious. He turned toward the council. Prepare the message. Varric raised an eyebrow. You want to send a warning? No, Kale replied calmly. A declaration. His crimson eyes turned toward me. The Lycan Queen will return to the Silver Moon Pack in 3 days. The council members immediately began discussing preparations. But my attention drifted to the window. 3 days. In 3 days I would stand in the same courtyard where my life had been shattered. But this time I wouldn't be the one kneeling. Far away in the Silver Moon Pack territory, chaos had begun to spread. The courtyard buzzed with angry voices as wolves argued among themselves. Alpha Tristan stood on the balcony overlooking the pack. His face looked darker than it had in years. Darren, the spy who had returned from the Lycan Kingdom, stood before him. You saw her? Tristan demanded. Yes, Alpha. And she was really standing beside the Lycan King? Yes. Tristan clenched his fists. You expect me to believe that the weak girl I banished is now the Lycan Queen? Darren hesitated. I saw it with my own eyes. The other warriors watching the conversation shifted uneasily. Tristan paced across the balcony. This is impossible. Darren swallowed nervously. There's more. Tristan stopped. What? Darren took a deep breath. The Lycan King sent a message. Tristan's eyes narrowed. What message? Darren's voice dropped. The Lycan Queen is returning. The courtyard below suddenly went quiet. Tristan stared at him. When? Darren hesitated. 3 days. Shock rippled through the gathered wolves. 3 days. One of the warriors stepped forward. Alpha, what are we going to do? Tristan's mind raced. For the first time in years. He wasn't sure. He had built his reputation on strength and dominance. But the woman returning to his pack was no longer the weak wolf he remembered. She was something far more dangerous. A queen. Tristan slowly looked toward the distant mountains. His voice was low. Prepare the pack. The warriors waited. For war. Tristan hesitated. Then he shook his head. No. His eyes darkened. For her. Because deep down Alpha Tristan already knew something terrifying. The woman he had rejected was about to change the fate of the entire pack. 3 days later the gates of the Silver Moon Pack would open again. But this time they would open for a queen. And the entire world would witness what happens when an alpha banishes the wrong mate. Then Varric spoke quietly. Your Majesty. Kale looked at him. Yes. The Silver Moon Pack will prepare for war after hearing that message. Kale's expression remained calm. Good. Then his gaze shifted back toward me. Because this time the return would not be quiet. The return of the Lycan Queen would shake the entire werewolf world. The morning of my return arrived faster than I expected. The sky above the Lycan kingdom glowed with pale gold as the sun rose behind the mountains. Warriors moved through the fortress courtyard, preparing horses and weapons. But there was no panic. Only calm determination. Because everyone understood something. This was not a battle. This was a reckoning. I stood inside the grand hall, adjusting the dark coat that had been prepared for me. The fabric was heavy, lined with silver threads that formed ancient Lycan symbols. The coat of a queen. For a moment I studied my reflection in the tall mirror before me. 5 years ago, I had stood outside the gates of the Silver Moon Pack crying, broken and alone. The girl staring back at me now looked nothing like her. My posture was stronger. My eyes calmer. And when the silver glow flickered faintly within them, it reminded me of everything I had become. The door behind me opened quietly. Kale entered the room. He stopped for a moment studying me. His crimson eyes softened slightly. You look ready. I exhaled slowly. I feel ready. He walked closer. Do you remember what you told the council? Yes. I met his gaze. I'm not going back for revenge. Kale nodded once. You're going back for justice. I smiled faintly. Exactly. He held out his hand. Then let's finish this. An hour later the gates of the Lycan kingdom opened. A long convoy of riders moved down the mountain road. At the front rode King Kale. Beside him the Lycan Queen. Behind us rode dozens of Lycan warriors. Not as an invading army but as witnesses. By midday the familiar forest surrounding the Silver Moon Pack territory came into view. My heart beat steadily as the gates appeared ahead. 5 years ago I had been thrown out of those gates like I meant nothing. Today they opened before I even reached them. The guards stepped aside quickly. Fear was written clearly on their faces. Word had already spread. The courtyard was full of wolves when we entered. Every member of the pack had gathered. Warriors, elders, families, and standing at the center of them all, Alpha Tristan. His posture was rigid. His expression tense. The moment he saw me ride into the courtyard beside the Lycan King, the color drained from his face. I dismounted slowly. Kale followed beside me. The Lycan warriors spread quietly around the edges of the courtyard. No one spoke. The silence was thick with tension. Tristan stepped forward. His voice was controlled but I could hear the strain beneath it. Elara. The sound of my name from his mouth felt strange. You're alive, he said. Yes. My voice echoed calmly through the courtyard. And stronger than you expected. Murmurs spread through the gathered wolves. Some looked shocked. Others looked ashamed. Tristan glanced briefly at Kale. So the rumors were true. Kale said nothing. This was my moment. Tristan's gaze returned to me. What do you want? I stepped forward slowly. What I should have received 5 years ago. His jaw tightened. And what is that? I stopped a few feet away from him. Respect. The word echoed through the courtyard. Tristan laughed bitterly. You think showing up with the Lycan King will make this pack bow to you? I tilted my head slightly. I don't think. My silver eyes began to glow faintly. I know. The power in the air shifted instantly. Several wolves stepped back. Even Tristan's warriors looked uneasy. Tristan clenched his fists. You're not their alpha. No, I agreed. But I am something far more dangerous. Kale finally spoke from behind me. The Lycan Queen. The title spread through the courtyard like thunder. Many wolves lowered their heads instinctively. Tristan looked around at them in frustration. Stand up, he snapped. Some obeyed. Others didn't. Because they could feel the difference now. The power standing before them. I looked directly into Tristan's eyes. I came here to offer you a choice. His expression hardened. What choice? I raised my voice so the entire pack could hear. I challenge you. Gasps spread across the courtyard. A challenge for leadership of this pack. Tristan froze. You're serious? Yes. My voice was steady. If you win, I leave and never return. The wolves watched breathlessly. And if I lose? Tristan asked. I held his gaze. You step down. And the Silver Moon Pack kneels to their new queen. Silence followed. Every wolf waited. This was the moment that would decide everything. Tristan looked around the courtyard. At the nervous faces of his warriors. At the Lycan King standing calmly beside me. Finally. At me. The woman he had once called weak. His pride battled with fear. Finally he spoke. I accept. The courtyard erupted into whispers. Kale stepped forward slightly. The challenge will be witnessed by both packs. Tristan nodded stiffly. Fine. Varric moved into the center of the courtyard. Then the duel begins now. The wolves quickly formed a large circle around us. Tristan stepped into the center. I followed. For a moment we simply stood facing each other. Memories flashed through my mind. The rejection. The humiliation. The night I was banished. But instead of anger I felt calm. Tristan lunged first. His claws slashed toward me with alpha strength. But this time I was ready. I moved faster. My body flowed with the power I had trained to control. His attack missed. Shock flashed across his face. I countered instantly. My strike sent him stumbling backward. Gasps spread through the watching wolves. Tristan recovered quickly. But his confidence was already cracking. We clashed again. And again. Each time my movements were sharper and stronger. My silver eyes burned with power. Finally, Tristan rushed forward in desperation. I sidestepped easily. Then struck once hard. The impact knocked him to the ground. The courtyard fell silent. Tristan struggled to stand. But I placed my foot firmly against his chest, pinning him to the ground. His breathing was heavy and defeated. I looked down at him. 5 years ago this man had thrown me away like nothing. Now the entire pack watched as their alpha lay beneath my foot. I slowly raised my voice. Do you yield? Tristan's pride fought desperately. But he knew the truth. Finally he lowered his head. I yield. The words echoed through the courtyard. For a moment. No one moved. Then Kale's voice rang out across the pack. Kneel. One by one the wolves of the Silver Moon Pack dropped to their knees. Warriors, elders and even the guards. All kneeling before the woman they had once rejected. I stepped back from Tristan. He remained on the ground staring up at me in disbelief. My voice was calm. You were right about one thing. He looked up weakly. What? You said I was weak. I turned toward the kneeling pack. But you were wrong about the ending. My silver eyes glowed brightly. Because a queen. I paused. Never kneels. And in that moment, the woman who had once been banished from the pack became the ruler of it. The Lycan Queen had returned. And the entire werewolf world would remember the night an alpha rejected the wrong mate. The courtyard remained silent long after Tristan surrendered. Hundreds of wolves still knelt on the stone ground. The wind moved softly through the trees surrounding the Silver Moon Pack, carrying the scent of a new beginning. I stood at the center of the courtyard, slowly taking in the sight before me. 5 years ago, these same wolves had watched as I was dragged through this courtyard like a disgrace. Some had laughed. Some had looked away. But none of them had spoken for me. Now they knelt. Not out of fear. But because they had finally seen the truth. Kale stepped beside me, his presence calm and steady. His crimson eyes swept across the pack. Rise, he commanded. The wolves slowly stood. Some still looked nervous. Others curious. A few even looked relieved. But every eye was focused on me. Because now I had to decide what kind of queen I would be. I turned toward Tristan. He still sat on the ground where I had defeated him. His pride had shattered and the weight of the moment seemed to press down on him. Stand, I told him. For a moment he didn't move. Then slowly he pushed himself to his feet. His gaze avoided mine. I lost, he said quietly. Yes. The word was simple. But it carried the finality of the duel. Tristan looked around the courtyard. At the wolves who were no longer looking at him as their alpha. At the warriors who once followed his every command. Then his eyes returned to me. What happens now? Several wolves shifted uneasily. They were wondering the same thing. Some expected punishment. Others expected revenge. But revenge was never the reason I returned. I folded my arms calmly. You will leave the pack. Tristan blinked. Leave. You are no longer their alpha. My voice echoed across the courtyard. But I will not execute you. A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. Kale watched me carefully, saying nothing. You will live as a lone wolf, I continued. Far from this territory. Tristan stared at me. You're sparing me? Yes. He let out a bitter laugh. You always were too soft. The silver glow flickered in my eyes. No. My voice was steady. I'm stronger than you ever were. The courtyard fell silent again. Tristan understood the difference. I wasn't sparing him because I was weak. I was sparing him because I didn't need revenge anymore. Two Lycan warriors stepped forward. Tristan didn't resist as they escorted him away. As he reached the gates, he stopped briefly. For a moment he looked back at me. Not with anger, but with something closer to regret. Then he walked out of the territory. And the gates closed behind him. The chapter of my life that began with him was finally over. I turned back to the wolves of the Silver Moon Pack. Many of them looked uncertain, unsure how to face the woman they had once rejected. An older she-wolf stepped forward first. She bowed her head slightly. High Queen, she said quietly. Some of us failed you. Several wolves lowered their heads in agreement. I studied their faces. They looked ashamed. But they were still my people. My pack. You did fail me, I said honestly. The courtyard grew tense. But today isn't about the past. I stepped forward slightly. Today is about the future. The wolves listened carefully. The Silver Moon Pack will remain your home. Relief spread across several faces. But things will change. My silver eyes scanned the crowd. There will be no more exiles without justice. No more decisions made from pride. No more wolves treated as weak simply because they are different. The warriors nodded slowly. For the first time, they were hearing the voice of a queen. Varric stepped forward beside Kale. Who will lead the pack now? I considered the warriors standing before me. Then my gaze landed on a familiar face. One of the warriors who had argued with Tristan earlier. A wolf who had stood up for fairness. Marcus. The tall warrior looked surprised. Step forward. He did. Confusion filled his eyes. I studied him for a moment. You opposed Tristan when he banished me. Marcus hesitated. Yes, my queen. Why? Because it was wrong. The answer came without hesitation. I nodded slowly. Then you will lead this pack. Gasps spread through the wolves. Marcus blinked in disbelief. Me? Yes. You will serve as Alpha. His voice shook slightly. I won't fail you. I know. The wolves around him began nodding in approval. Some even smiled. For the first time in years, the Silver Moon Pack had a leader they respected. Kale stepped beside me again. Well chosen. The tension in the courtyard slowly faded. Wolves began speaking quietly among themselves. Hope replacing fear. I turned toward Kale. Thank you. For what? For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. His crimson eyes softened slightly. I didn't believe in you. I frowned. You didn't. No. A small smile touched his lips. I knew. My heart warmed. The bond between us pulsed gently again. Stronger than ever. Kale held out his hand. Come with me. Where? The Lycan Kingdom. For what? His smile widened. For your coronation. The wolves around us looked surprised. Coronation? Marcus asked. Kale's voice carried across the courtyard. The world will soon know the name of the Lycan Queen. He looked at me. And when they do? His crimson eyes glowed faintly. They will remember the story of the wolf who was once banished. I took his hand. The warmth of the mate bond spread through my chest. Together we walked toward the gates of the Silver Moon Pack. But this time I wasn't leaving in exile. I was leaving as a queen. And somewhere deep within the mountains, the Lycan Kingdom was already preparing for the rise of its new ruler. The woman who had once been rejected. The woman who had once been called weak. Now stood beside the Lycan King. Not as an outcast, but as his equal. The Lycan Queen. And her reign had only just begun. And that was the night the Silver Moon Pack finally understood the truth. The wolf they once called weak. The mate they publicly rejected. The woman they banished into the wilderness. Had returned as the Lycan Queen. And the Alpha who once cast her out would forever live with the greatest mistake of his life. Sometimes the ones we underestimate the most are the ones destined to rise higher than anyone ever imagined. So tell me in the comments, if you were Elara, would you have forgiven the pack? Or would you have taken revenge? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful werewolf story. Because the next story might be even more shocking.